Hey friends, today we're talking about a tool that I have used and it's helped me greatly as I try to be intentional and share the gospel. A tool that helps me figure out where people are and what I can do to be most faithful in those situations. So this is what we're talking about in this video. I'm so stoked. Let's jump in. We got a comment on a video from one of our friends asking, how can I be most intentional in situations? How can I kind of read where people are at so I can be faithful and really spend the majority of my time with people who will hear the gospel and not waste all of it on people who have hardened their hearts and who aren't going to be ready to hear the gospel? And that's a great question, because I think sometimes in apologetics we get so focused on the debate side that we spend most of our time with people that are very passionately against our view, and I think oftentimes those are going to be the last people that are actually going to be ready to listen to the truth. Now that's another conversation that we can talk about, that's ricochet evangelism, of actually engaging them, because there's an audience around you that's actually going to be hearing what you're saying. But this friend's comment was a really good point, because we don't want to spend all our time on people that really just aren't going to hear the gospel, that aren't ready to receive it. We want to spend time on the people, all the people around us, that really are interested, that have questions, and that are considering it. So I'm going to give you guys a tool that I've used that's really helped me out in navigating conversations, figuring out where people are at, and being most faithful and intentional in those conversations, in those relationships, in those situations. And that's going to be the stoplight analogy. So in this analogy, you're going to be kind of imagine people as a stoplight, right? A stoplight has a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. Now, if you're a good driver, hopefully you know the difference between the lights, right? Green means go ahead. Yellow means slow down, or some of us might think that means speed up, right? If you're like me. And then red means stop. We're going to be imagining people as one of these three lights. Green as go, yellow as slow down, be cautious, and red as stop. So in these cases, red is going to be somebody who's really not ready to hear the gospel. What's that going to look like? All of these people, you're going to be figuring out where they're at by asking good questions. And if you want a guide to be able to ask those questions, then I suggest checking out the book Tactics by Greg Gogol. It's going to be a guide just to be able to ask these good questions, navigate these conversations with tact and wisdom. I made a book review on it, so I suggest you check that out right after this. You can find it right here as well as in the description below. But so as you ask questions, maybe trying to direct the conversation towards the spiritual, like, yeah, so your dad's Muslim, huh? Tell me a little bit about that religion. I'm not very familiar. Tell me how that works. Or, hey, have you ever considered the afterlife? What are your thoughts on it? Or, hey, are you interested in spiritual things? These are just conversation openers, not really awkward questions, really just interesting questions that you can use to kind of direct the conversation in that direction. Now, someone who's a red light, who's not ready to talk about this, is probably going to give you pushback. This might come in the form of giving like a one-word answer, like, yeah, he's a Muslim, it's just, this is what that means. And then they might quickly redirect the conversation towards sports, like, hey, have you seen the new game? Have you seen what the Clippers did? Bro, that was such a good game. I think that's what I've seen in most cases from a red light. They're going to give a short answer to end that conversation, and then they're going to be intentional to derail that conversation towards something more comfortable that they actually care about. So that might be a sign of a red light. Now, be very careful not to be so quick to judge people and just think, oh, you're a red light. You know what? I gotta go, but hey, I'll see you around. Because let's just be honest, first impressions are deceiving. There have been times when I've thought people are red lights, but as I kind of push them a couple more times, usually those conversations do come out, and they might actually be a yellow light. We'll get to what that means in a minute. So I just want to say, press the questions multiple times. Don't just try one question like, hey, are you interested in spiritual things? If it gets shut down and they direct the conversation somewhere else, don't give up right away. I'd say give it 2 or 3 attempts at least, with different questions, not the same question, obviously. That's going to be really, frankly, kind of rude to bring them back to something they don't want to talk about. But you can try several different questions, and soon I'll make a video with just different questions that you can ask to direct the conversation towards the spiritual, towards the deeper topics. But so ask multiple questions, like I gave examples before. If they keep shutting it down and directing the conversation somewhere else, then these people are going to be red lights. Some of them might get frustrated with you. These might even be people who are passionately against your view and really just want nothing to do with it. These are going to be red lights. And at that point in their life, sharing the gospel with them is not going to be the most effective way to reach them because they're going to have their ears shut to it. So the way you can be most faithful with a red light person is A, pray for them. Guys, keep them in your prayer. We need the Holy Spirit to work on their heart, to soften their heart towards the truth, to open their ears, to open their mind, and to put more people in their life that are Christians. Jesus said, pray to the Lord of the harvest to send more laborers because the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So pray for God to send more laborers into this person's life, more Christians that they interact with that can get them closer to the foot of the cross. And that's really where you're at with a red light. It's not, how can I share the gospel with you and get you to profess faith in Jesus and get into discipleship? It's really just, what can I do in this conversation to get you a little bit closer to the foot of the cross? In every case, that's going to be showing love and kindness to this person. In every case. You got to show the love of Jesus, guys. Don't be jerks. Show the love of Jesus because you might be the only Christian they've talked to. And if you give them a bad impression, they might reject Jesus because they've rejected you. And that would be awful for that to be the case. So with a red light, pray for them. Pray for God to send more people into their lives. Keep them in prayer, not just in that situation. And show love to them. Also, just ask good questions. Drop a little pebble in their shoe, like Greg Koukl likes to say. A question that'll stick with them, that they'll leave that conversation and keep asking. Something that they'll have to eventually take a stop and take their shoe off, pull that pebble out because it's been annoying them so much. Ask them a good question, kind of see what they care about, where they're at, and just leave them with a good question, something to think about. So that's going to be a red light, someone who's not ready to hear the gospel. And with them, you just want to be kind, be loving, pray for them, and leave them with a good question. So that's a red light, someone who's not ready yet. A yellow light, once again, is going to be that slow down and be cautious person, okay? These people are going to be skeptical. Maybe they're agnostics. Maybe they're just people who are curious, but they've had bad experiences with the church in the past. So they're interested. They want to know. They're happy to have that conversation, but they're cautious. You got to be careful with these guys. You don't want to be too pushy because that's when they're going to back out. These guys already have an interest. They will carry on a conversation. Once again, as you ask those questions I was talking about, like, are you interested in spiritual things? Or what's your religious background? Or do you ever think about the afterlife? These are going to be the guys who won't shut that conversation down. They'll likely pick it up and throw it around a little bit. So definitely start those conversations. If they pick those conversations up and kind of rally it back and forth, then good. Keep that conversation going. Be very kind again. You got to be loving and kind. Show them the kindness of Jesus. And be patient with these guys. This is going to be huge with the yellow light. Don't go too fast into the gospel because likely they've had bad experiences with Christians or the church in the past. And if you go too quickly, they're going to think that you're just doing it to check a box to get them saved. But with these guys, you really got to be sincere. Like, we're sharing the gospel because we actually care about them. So if you care about them, treat them like a person. Get to know them. Spend time with them. And be willing to be their friend whether they commit to Jesus or not. That's what it means to love them. It's to love them whether they commit to Jesus or not. So patience, patience, patience with the yellow light. Ask good questions, have those conversations, and be willing to talk about your faith, how it's changed your life. And ask them if they've had similar experiences. Like, when I share the gospel, I like to ask, what about you? Have you had an experience like that? This kind of changed my life. Now I have hope. Now I have peace. Now I have assurance. And I actually think I have a relationship with God. Like, it's incredible. What about you? Have you ever, experienced anything like that? See where they're at. Maybe that'll prompt more discussion on your own experience and your transformation that you found with Jesus through the power of the Holy Spirit. That's going to be cool. But patience, patience, patience. Just have those conversations. Ultimately, with the yellow light, it's going to be having those conversations and being their friend. That's just where they're at. And this is really a relationship of discipleship. Guys, discipleship starts before someone's a believer. Right? Jesus walked up to people and said, hey, come and follow me. And he started discipling them, even before they understood all the details, even before they realized this guy's God. Even before they realized, yeah, he's going to die for my sins and rise again, and now I have a new life with him. Discipleship starts before someone's a believer. What that looks like in the context of the modern church is that's meeting with somebody and just having spiritual conversations, answering their questions, asking them questions, being their friend, and really just getting them closer to the foot of the cross by having these conversations. So again, it's going to be similar to red light in that it's trying to get them closer to the foot of the cross, but in this case, this is going to be somebody who's actually interested. Their heart is actually kind of working towards this. You don't need to be praying for a gift of a new heart for them. Definitely keep them in prayer, but really just be praying that God opens their eyes to understand and to see, really to get them all the way to the foot of the cross, because they're already walking that direction. So with these guys, if you meet somebody, you have this conversation, you see that they're humoring this conversation, they're passing it back and forth on spiritual stuff, then plan to meet up. Like, hey, I really enjoyed this conversation. Do you want to talk more about this kind of stuff? I mean, I love it. I think you're enjoying it too. What if we meet for coffee next week? Or what if we grab dinner next week? And get into the habit of meeting with them again and again and again. Once again, cultivating this friendship, this relationship, and really just having these conversations. Talking about more and more and more stuff. And as the friendship allows, challenge them. Not immediately, because that's going to push them away. Once again, these guys are cautious. So, as the relationship allows, begin to challenge them. Tell them, what do you think about Jesus? Do you want to know more about what it looks like to follow Jesus? Where are you at? What do you kind of think about all the stuff I've been sharing with you? Would you consider coming with me to church to kind of see what it looks like? And that's going to be a discipleship relationship. That's really what you're doing with a yellow light. You're discipling them. You're answering their questions. You're having this friendship. You're discipling them. So, red light is going to be someone who's stop, they're not ready. So you're just going to be loving, you're going to be nice, you're going to leave them with a question, and you're going to pray for them. A yellow light, you're going to have this conversation, you're going to answer their questions, you're going to be patient, you're going to be patient, and you're going to be patient, and you're going to keep meeting with them. You're going to keep answering their questions. You're going to actually get to know them. You're going to be their buddy. You're going to be their friend, as you should want to be. And then as the relationship allows, you're going to challenge them and invite them into more. Now, a green light, that's somebody, man, they're ready to go. Maybe this is a yellow light, someone that you've been meeting with a lot, and they're like, yeah, I want to know what it looks like to follow Jesus. Yeah, I want to go with you to church. Or maybe you're sharing the gospel, and they're like, man, I want that. With these guys, it's really going to be a deeper form of discipleship in that it's no longer just answering their questions and being there for them and inviting them into more. It's really going to be walking with them, following Jesus. It's going to be following Jesus together. So this is going to be the kind of person that you're going to want to go to church with. You're going to want to study together, study the Bible together. Just make time to pray together. That's huge. Time to worship together. And maybe even start teaching them to share the gospel. I think that being able to teach the gospel actually shows that someone understands it. So teach them tools to share the gospel and start sharing the gospel together. When they see that this is what it's all about, that following Jesus means that my life is a purpose and there's something for us to do right here, right now, because he's our Lord and Master and he's a mission to reach all nations and redeem a people to come and worship him and enjoy him forever, that makes it come alive. And that lets them be a part of something bigger, which is really what everybody's looking for. Everybody's looking for a solution to our brokenness and a place where we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, where we're a part of something meaningful. So if they're green, they understand the gospel, they want to take that step, you're just helping them to take that step. You're taking that step with them. And then you're training them to keep on taking steps by actually contributing to something bigger than themselves. That means getting involved at church, and that means learning to actually obey the Great Commission and share the gospel and make more disciples, right? You're discipling this person, but you're discipling this person to be a disciple maker who makes disciples, who makes disciples, who makes disciples. So that's why I think it's important to teach them how to share the gospel and then to actually start discipling other people together. Them as the person learning under you, but also getting to be in that role where they're getting to see what it actually looks like to make disciples. So in short, a red light's gonna be somebody who's not ready. They're shutting it down with them. You're loving them, you're being nice, you're being kind, you're praying for them even after you leave the conversation. You're really praying that they become a yellow light, that they become open to this, that God works in their hearts and minds. And you're going to leave them with a question that they can hold on to after the relationship ends. You're just praying that God gets them closer to the foot of the cross. A yellow light, someone who's interested, but they're slowing down a little bit. They're cautious. With them, once again, you got to be patient, you got to be patient, you got to be patient. Once again, you're going to be loving and nice, obviously. You're going to have this conversation, which they're going to be into, and then you're going to keep meeting with them. Keep meeting with them. Build that friendship, build that relationship, and keep on talking about spiritual stuff. Talk more and more about the gospel and how it's transformed your life. And as the relationship allows, challenge them. Invite them to church with you. Invite them to a Bible study. Invite them to start reading the Bible with you if they want to learn. And that's going to be a yellow light, to really getting them to the actual foot of the cross. And then a green light's going to be somebody who's at the foot of the cross. They've heard the gospel. And they're like, yeah, I think I want to do this. I want to take that first step. How can I do that? With them, it's really going to be the last step of this initiation of discipleship. It's going to be actually taking that first step with them and helping them get involved at church, being a part of this thing that's bigger than themselves, and really training them to go and do what you're doing, and that's to disciple others, to be disciple makers. So really when it comes down to reaching people to gospel and apologetics, you can look at it as discipleship. A red light's someone who's not ready for discipleship, but you can love them, you can pray for them, and you can leave them with a question that might get them a little bit closer. A yellow light is someone to start discipling, a relationship to foster, questions to answer, and then a green light's going to be someone to disciple, but in the area of Christianity, to actually get them to be a part of the body, to be an active member in God's body, which of course has a purpose and a mission here in this world. So that's an analogy that's helped me a lot in figuring out relationships and really just being the most faithful with the time and relationships God's giving me. We don't want to waste all our time on red lights because they're the kind of people who aren't ready to hear the gospel, probably. And we want to spend a lot of time with yellow lights, of course. People actually getting them into the church. And then we also want to be very, very intentional with people who are actually in the church but need to be mentored, need to be discipled, so they can actually become mature believers. So it's really discipleship, guys. That's really what it comes down to. It's figuring out the people who are ready to be discipled and the people who aren't. We just need to pray for them in the time being. And again, before we close this video, I just want to tell you, be careful with being too quick to judge. We don't want to be too quick to that because first impressions are often wrong. So don't jump to the conclusion that someone's a red light. Throw multiple questions out there, right? At least 2 or 3 before you realize, okay, it's not going to happen right now. That's okay. But I'm going to be praying for you, and yeah, let's ask some questions. Have you ever thought about this? Or you believe this? How does that kind of relate to this thing that I've been thinking about? Tell me about that. So be very patient, be very prayerful, trust in God, and be faithful to relationships He's given you. That's it, guys. That's the stoplight analogy. I hope it helps you guys in your gospel conversations and in your relationships and in your discipleship. Let me know what you think in the description below, anything you would add to that, or maybe ways that you've experienced this in your own life by people actually mentoring you, discipling you, maybe bringing you into the faith, or maybe ways that you're actually starting to apply this right now. Let me know in the comment section below. Having said that, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.